This is Cutting Down the Nets, Tuesday, January 31st. Got a good schedule. I'll walk through the top 7-8 games on my value board. We are now at 52.1% for the year, thanks to Iowa State playing tighter than a TJ Olsenberger's polo down the stretch in Lubbock last night, and then Baylor getting the Skalansky Bucks with shot quality. So let's get right to my big board. What you'll see here is Paddy. That is recent adjusted efficiency. I'll give you some examples in live data today. Paddy median. So Paddy's an average, median's a median. It kind of smooths out outliers. My guess at shot quality's year-to-date point spread without paying for a subscription. And then how that's trending. So recent last, it's right around like 12 games if I had to guess. Torvik for the year, KenPom for the year, and the actual spread. And I'll put notes here. This spreadsheet that you see is available every day. It's posted on my Twitter, which is at CDTN_Paddy. It's on the last kind of page I worked through today. If it's a minus sign, that is the home team being favored. If it's a plus sign, that's the road team being favored. So these are always home spreads is the way to think of them. All right, West Virginia, TCU. Paddy has this closer to 10. Why is the line 2.5? One, Mike Miles likely out, and then Eddie Lampkin, a game-time decision. West Virginia won this first game by 9. Both teams were pretty sloppy in that game. Lots of fouls, lots of free throws. The edge, which I will show you here. So here's the box score from the game 13 days ago. I think the key to this game, 19 turnovers by TCU. That's pretty sloppy. 15 on the Mountaineers side. But if you look at the offensive rebounds, you'll see 4 from TCU and 14 from the Mountaineers. How did that happen? Let's look at the matchup of these two teams. So this is using their season-long data. West Virginia rebounding 34.4% of their misses, and this is one of the few weaknesses that TCU has is in defensive rebounding. So there's no reason to say it couldn't happen again. So concerns there for that. I'll slide over TCU's tab here real quick. Mike Miles being out, this is a quick check. I don't think you need data to tell you Mike Miles is good at basketball. But he does have a 27% usage and a 113 O rating. So he's super important. I mean, is he worth like 5 points? I don't know. Like maybe not 5. But with him and Lampkin out and that one matchup edge on the offensive rebounds, yeah, I think that game is shaky enough for me to sit out. I do expect TCU to control the ball a little better, but certainly not good with Miles out. Kentucky, Mississippi. This soft opener was at like 5.5. Then it got to 7. There was a moment in time where I think Circa had a 9. Now Circa has the 8.5, but it's juice, so I don't know what I'm going to do here. UK is the story here. Ole Miss has been pretty consistent. They're like, they're fine. But yeah, you can see here when I first did my notes, it was 5.5. And I expected that number to grow. Well, congratulations, I was right. So 3 egregious defensive games dragged down their Paddy, but even the Paddy from the last 6 would be UK -5. So let's talk through Kentucky. Here's what I mean by the egregious games. A 137.1 adjusted efficiency, but that's in a 20-point win against Florida A&M, where Florida A&M made more than half their threes. Next one, LSU. LSU 11-25 from 3. Again, a home Kentucky win, albeit one that was closer than it probably should have been. And then the South Carolina game, a 135 defensive efficiency because South Carolina, not a good shooting team, went 11-20 from 3. So this is points per possession. That's a really bad stretch. It's gotten better. I think Cal has kind of moved some lineups around. He's found one he likes at this point. But clearly these are outliers when you look at the body of work. However, I said the last 6 would be UK -5. That includes the South Carolina game. If you looked at just the last 5 games, that point spread's probably closer to 10-ish, 10, 11, just using a 5-game sample. I don't use 5-game samples. I'm typically like 6 to 15 and kind of read the context in there. But do note here that while they were owed some probably 3-point defense regression in their favor, it's really sprung back. I mean, these are some poor shooting numbers here, albeit they had a poor shooting performance, their own, against Kansas. So, yeah, I think the 5 was super light, but now we're getting into how high can it go, a game I like to play. And, yeah, I'm kind of watching that one. I'm not going to jump at a number, and if it slides back down, I'll probably just sit it out is where I'm out with that. Let me freeze the pane again. I always forget to do this. Kansas State is next. So let's dive into Kansas State here. 18-3. If you remember, they won the overtime thriller in the Octagon. Here's what I want to point out for K-State. This green here indicates 3-point luck. Red is bad luck, green is good luck. The last 5 games, they've allowed 21, 22% from 3, but on the year, they're allowing 28.4% for the year. So they're doing something well. The problem is like it's trending even better. So where that comes into play is you look at some of these 3-point numbers, and then you look at the adjusted offensive efficiencies or the point per possessions, which is non-adjusted. What does the .807 become if this is 8 out of 22? That goes up. What if this is 9 out of 19? That goes up even more. So, look, I get it. It's just like when that luck runs out, like this 11 out of 27, you see an adjusted defensive efficiency of 108. 8 out of 25, you see a 103. So, yeah, kind of on the fence. With that being said, I mean, come on. We really going to get up to like 3 possessions here? Revenge spot for Kansas, I get it. I talked about the screaming regression owed to Kansas State's 3-point defense. But this is a lot of points. I do think there's some value there. This is probably a realistic number. These are probably realistic numbers. So taking those together, you got like 4.7. There's value there. Just a little worried about the regression. That's why I've not bet it yet. And maybe that thing just gets steamed up a little bit more. And if it doesn't, I don't have to bet it. Next up, Texas A&M and Arkansas. This is the matchup on Bart Torvik's upcoming games. You just look at the game preview, and it gives you all this sort of stuff. I want to point out 2 things with Arkansas. Arkansas shooting 33.3% from further twos and shooting 30.7% from 3. This is a bad shooting team. There's been some discussion about how Muss understands that and does everything he can to limit the amount of jump shots his team takes, because he's traditionally more of a rim and 3 guy, but understands this team can't shoot, so we have to pivot to something else. So here's the problem. They will want to get 42, 54% of their shots close to the rim. Texas A&M allows 5% of shots to be dunks. So that's something that is being limited by the Aggie defense, and then only 30% close twos at the rim. So everything screams that. If you look at Haslametrics, proximity is how far away are the shots from the basket. 3 would be all 3-pointers, and then the lower you get, 1.8. So here's where Texas A&M's defense sits. 2.2, which is 3rd nationally. The 3rd furthest proximity from the basket is what Texas A&M's defense allowed. So it is a strength on strength here, but I always lean toward who can funnel you outside. I mentioned that in a recent Tulane Wichita State game, and then Wichita State made their first 6 threes, I think, and it's like, man, don't know what I'm talking about. And then I think went like 4 for 29 the rest of the game. Yeah, bad teams are going to do that. So I bet Texas A&M +4 at Circa. Northwestern, just Northwestern, J&W against Iowa. They're showing some cracks of late on their defense. They've had a very solid defense for the year. It's very correlated with defensive rebounding and turnovers. Iowa's a very strong offensive rebounding team and are 9th in the country at ball protection, meaning they turn over the fewest, all fewer than but 8 teams. But I want to focus on some stretches here for Iowa. You can see Iowa, no surprise, a very, very good offensive team and a very bad defensive team. Calling attention to recent data here. The Iowa State game, so 128.7, all the way through the Nebraska game. So these 5 did not have Chris Murray, arguably the best player on Iowa's team. Can be confirmed here. 25% usage, a 122 O rating. Next up, from the Indiana game up until the Rutgers game, Patrick McCaffrey, a significant contributor, not a star on the team, but a significant contributor, missed all those games. So just one time in, 2, I think Penn State would count. 2 times since December 6th, both those players have been on the court together. And you can see that PMAC is a high-usage player as well. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much all the data Paddy's looking at is excluding one of those players, one being far more important than the other. But that's worth calling out. So 7 compared to these 1.5, 2s. I still think there's value on the Northwestern side, but yeah, I can see why the line is 7, and I have to make a decision there. As a Hawkeye fan, I love betting against Iowa, and then if I'm wrong, we win, blowout, whatever. So, whatever. Next game up, Wake Forest, Duke. So what I want to point out here is Duke is 22nd in shot quality, Wake Forest is 48. So those are pretty close together in shot quality, where KenPom has Duke 28, right in line with shot quality, whereas Wake Forest is 74. So you could make an argument that Wake is the undervalued team. Looking at that matchup, here we have Wake. We look at what Wake has done recently in terms of three-point defense, so probably a stronger defense than that, a bit unlucky, you would say. And if you look at Duke, Duke's kind of got a mixed bag here, but overall, very positive three-point difference outcomes is what we've seen from Duke. Concerns there would be right in this section here. Duke is massive, big team. Wake does have a little more size than Georgia Tech. I noted that Georgia Tech was going to get murdered on the boards. They did, and they got blown out. Duke, the number 1 offensive rebounding team in terms of a percentage. Wake, decent there at limiting that, but it's hard to limit such a strong strength. And then you have Wake as a poor offensive rebounding team themselves, and Duke, usually if you're good at one, you're good at both. So what do we have here? We have to decide what that means and how important that is. Should be a lowerish possession game. I think Duke's owed some regression here, so that benefits Wake. I think Wake's due some regression, that benefits Wake. But if Wake is not making shots, they likely are not getting second chance opportunities. Turnover edge is pretty neutral, maybe a slight edge to Wake Forest. So at the end of the day, for me, this comes down to a 9.5 point spread, not a 6-point spread or something like that. So I do see value on the Wake Forest side and was able to play a 9.5. I've seen some like 8s now. Not sure what I would do. I mean, you could be patient, see what happens. It all depends how things catch steam. I mean, Texas Tech with no good news last night caught steam. Grill was playing for Iowa State. Texas Tech still had 2 of their players out. There was no reason. God, there's no reason that game should have went the way that game went. But moving on. Indiana and Maryland, shot quality and Paddy are apart. If you look at their 3-point data, I don't have it up. Hoosiers are running a little hot from 3, and Maryland running a little cold. But Maryland's been running cold from 3 for the whole year. May just be that they cannot shoot. And then Akron, Buffalo. Buffalo might be the team that's able to like get good shots, but can't make them. Like, I feel like every time I watch, they're missing layups or, yeah, I don't know. So I think there's some value in Buffalo, but it is a little thin in my opinion. Buffalo 160 in shot quality, 164 in KenPom, so they're pretty much in line. Akron 81 in shot quality, 118 in KenPom. So you may be saying, sounds like Akron would be undervalued. Well, here's the problem. This line is not -1, which KenPom would have. It is already adjusted for the shot quality, and that's why it's 2.5. That's been bet up. So, yeah, I don't know where I'll go with that. These following orange games, SQ Paddy disagreements on Ball State, Bowling Green, Clemson, Boston College. And then tricky spot for Boise State. They go to Air Force on Friday. They have the showdown with San Diego State at Viejas. Yeah, I don't think that's a good spot for Boise State right before their big game on the road against a slow 3-point shooting team. So yeah, that's what today looks like for me. So as of right now, I have locked in Wake Forest and Texas A&M, and the 3 I'm considering are just Northwestern, Kansas State, and Ole Miss. Hoping for better numbers on all. Will it happen? Probably not. Just going to have to make some decisions. So this is Cutting Down the Nets. Good luck on this Tuesday, January 31st. Tomorrow is February.